in this video, I'm going to go over some play-based exercises that integrate movement lesson. I'm showing how I would apply the exercises on my son. My setup is pretty intense, but I'm a type A parent, and I truly believe that my success has been reflected with the amount of effort that I've put into my child. I am not a doctor or a physiotherapist, but I am a movement lesson practitioner, and all of these tools that I am making use of have been recommended to me off of my own child's physiotherapists, and then I make use of them to functionally incorporate movement lesson to make them successful for my child. The hip structures are improved through a vertical milestone, and it is this interaction between the vertical milestones within gravity that help bring the hips into proper alignment. But the key thing that we need in order to improve your hip structure is a rotational movement to help that hip form properly for your child. Exercise that I'm going to recommend is going to be working on step-ups. I have these cute little, they're called Sunny Funs, and they're just like build your own obstacle courses. But the nice thing about it is it's quite a low setup, and this allows you to work on a small step for your child for stepping up. And then over time, I increase the height of our step ups. We master the small step up to the bigger step up. That's when we can transition into stairs, but it's a building upon these little steps that will help us be able to bring the hips into alignment. Like me, sometimes I use modeling. Like me, oh, the ground is lava. And sometimes I incorporate actual movement lesson with him. Movement lesson hanging technique. And what I'm doing is I'm directing the hips with rotational movements into proper alignment. So when we step up, we have to transfer the weight from, it works in like an X, from the top half over to the bottom side, so that the hip is in proper weight alignment all the way up to make this foot free from support, and then switching it back over again. And I'm directing the hips to offer that proper alignment. So it's important to remember that we're not only trying to align the hips for weight distribution, but we're also working on the forward and back plane. So if he's leaning back too far and I can feel his weight leaning against me, I offer a slight rotational touch to tilt him a little bit more forward. So one of the tasks that we need to do with our children is getting them dressed. Basically what I'm doing is I'm just leaning him back against my one leg, and then I'm help direct his pelvis to shift his weight from one foot to the next foot. If I find that he's leaning too far back, I'll just roll my knee a little bit forward to bring his hips forward a bit more. And if he's coming too far forward, I'll put my hand up to balance him. But we like to play this game. It's called tick-tock cuckoo clocks. Tick-tock, tick-tock. I'm a little cuckoo clock. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Now we're doing 1 o'clock. So I like to play that little game. It's called tick-tocks, and basically what we're working on is we're just working on that transfer of weight. This is a great exercise to do even as an adult, for us to practice being able to balance on one foot easily by figuring out the proper weight distribution for our foot to be free. And with my little guy, I'm not setting aside specific times to work on his movement lessons. I'm incorporating them into just every simple little day tasks. Maybe we'll play a little cuckoo clock. I'll work on him transferring his weight when we're putting on his clothes. But finding that way to integrate movement lesson into your life where it's only taking a few minutes multiple times a day, it adds up over time, and then your child is able to neuromap the movement. Sometimes it can be really difficult to see what I'm doing on a busy moving child, so I have my doll here. I have some midline points marked, and I'm just going to show you exactly where my hand placement was on the doll, so you can be a little bit more mindful when you're working on your own child. But basically when we're working on a step up, a smaller step up, we're providing support. Michelle talks about the light rotational touch, clarinet hands. I'm not grabbing, I'm not making them do it. Like you'll see a traditional physiotherapist force a child or hold a child. We're not forcing, we're not holding, because when we take that fear of falling and force out of the equation, it opens up the mind's ability to be more receptive to learning the skill that we're attempting to teach them. So this is why we're always light, and this is why we're always rotational. We're just supporting the movement within gravity, but we're not forcing the movement within gravity, because when we use force, it really causes our child to feel like they're off balance or falling. So we work on step ups. We're working on building up the step up. Obviously this step up's quite high for a baby doll, but you get kind of the point. I'm right here on the hips. And what I'm gonna first do is I wanna transfer the weight of the body. We're first standing on 2 feet. I'm transferring the weight over top of the one hip so that it frees out this leg. And then you're going to offer a roll, a rotational roll within the hip and the trochanter to step. And then what you're going to do is you want to shift the weight on from the bottom foot that's on the floor up onto the foot that is on the step up, so that the alignment is now on this foot. And that's how we are stepping up. The alignment is transferring from the back foot to the front foot. It's very important in this equation. We need to understand that in order for this movement to be successful, it needs to have a nice momentum to it, because when we do step ups too slow, then the balance point of the body kind of gets thrown off and it falls down, kind of like when you see someone riding a bike. If you ride your bike too slow, the bike doesn't stay up. And that's the same with the body. If the body isn't moving fast enough, then the body's not going to stay up. So we want to make sure that that transfer of weight from the one foot and alignment of the hip back to the other foot and the alignment of the hip is with a good enough momentum that the child isn't going to fall. So we also want to make sure that we're doing bilateral movements, so a movement with each side, because we don't want to create a side preference. When your child has a side preference, that's going to tell you that one of the hip structures is possibly more compromised or deviated than the other hip structure. In those cases, if you do have one hip that is more deviated than the other hip, you are going to want to focus on that hip because you want to bring that hip into better alignment. And so being mindful of which one is the weaker hip, you might be offering a little bit more support, but you're wanting to make sure that you are really offering that rotational movement into the hip. It's this roll of the hip that pulls the hip into the proper arch that we're looking for. I hope you found this video helpful to just see the breakdown of a step up. It's important to note how the hips affect the vision, and when you take away rotational movements of the pelvis, it really locks up your vision. And when we have a proper hip formation and a bilateral movement, it really helps open up our visual arcs and our peripheral vision. And this is why hips affect vision. It's important to remember to meet your child where they're at, so you're not necessarily just off the bat working on step ups, but maybe your first plan of action is to just be working on that subtle weight transfer from foot to foot, allowing the lower foot to have the freedom to come on out, and then you might, after you master that, work towards that momentum from going from the back foot to the front foot. And then that's when we would be able to, once we've mastered that, beginnings of taking a small step up till we build up to a proper stair. And with that, if you have any comments, questions, please leave them below. Your feedback on my video so that I can create content that's valuable for you is always greatly appreciated. And my little guy is ready to go play. So we'll see you next time.